What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, you read the title, you saw the thumbnail, so you should know why I'm super pumped to be bringing you this video, which is the top 5 must-own breakout wide receivers for 2021. Those of you out there that have been longtime followers of the channel are well aware of our approach heading into fantasy drafts, which heavily relies on identifying and targeting late-round players that have a ton of upside. The formula, it's very simple. Look for players that do have within their range of outcomes of being a top 20 player at their position, and if you're in the later rounds, we're completely fine with sacrificing safety or a floor just to have the potential for that upside. Bench points don't win championships, and our goal is to either upgrade our starters or trade away our depth, and by cycling through as many of these high upside, low success rate players as we can, what you'll get eventually is a few breakouts along the way. Before we do get into the video though, just a quick shout out and reminder that if you do enjoy these videos, you enjoy the content we're putting out, the best way to show your support is simply by hitting the like button. It only takes a moment for you, but greatly helps us out in growing the channel, and our goal is to hit 100k subscribers by the start of the NFL season, and with all of your help, we can definitely make that happen. So once again, if you guys enjoy these videos, hit that like button, and if you're new, maybe you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, consider taking today as an opportunity to do so. Also, guys, be advised our draft packages are available now. You don't need to wait for us to break down a player on a video on YouTube. We have video player breakdowns on the top 150 players. Doesn't just end there though, you gain access to our tier-based rankings, our sleepers, our targets, our busts, risk ratings, player projections, access to our private Discord community group, and more. So if that's something that interests you, once again, that can be found at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, link as always in the description box below. With all of that said though, it's time to hop over to our stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was 3 quarterbacks last season were able to compile 450 plus passing yards in a single game last season. One quarterback though was able to accomplish that feat on 3 separate occasions. Which quarterback was it? The correct answer was actually Dak Prescott. Congratulations to James Basil, the first to get this right on YouTube, and as for Twitter, at the Lord of Meese. Once again, congratulations to both of you. But as for today's stat of the day, in 2020 there were 8 players to have at least 3 receiving touchdowns in a single game last season. Only one of those players though was at the tight end position. Which tight end was that? Leave your answer in the comment section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. Alright guys, without further ado, it's time to hop right into the video, and we'll begin as per usual with the player listed on the thumbnail. That player, of course, Mecole Hardman of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think I speak for many of us when I say that Mecole Hardman has been a player that a lot of us have had our eyes on since he was drafted in the second round of the 2019 draft. Admittedly though, it's not all because Mecole Hardman was some superior draft prospect. Don't get me wrong, he is an exceptional athlete, talented enough of course to be drafted in the second round, but a large reason that we all love Mecole Hardman and wonder about the potential upside for him is the fact that he landed in the Kansas City Chiefs offense led by Patrick Mahomes, arguably the most talented quarterback we have in the league. The sheer thought of combining Mecole Hardman's 4.33 40 time with his 75th percentile speed score, 76th percentile agility score, then combine all of that with Patrick Mahomes' arm, and it's very possible you have a player that's able to compete with Tyreek Hill, who's also playing alongside of him in the same offense. Unfortunately though, fast forward 3 seasons and Mecole Hardman's coming off of a 2020 campaign where he only played on 44.5% of snaps, a snap share so low that Mecole Hardman actually finished outside the top 125 players in that specific category. Clearly, it's safe to say that up to this point, Mecole Hardman is more of a special teams player / offensive role player. Heading into 2021 though, the door is wide open for him to potentially crack the starting lineup. The big roster news here of course is Sammy Watkins is no longer a Chief, he is now a Baltimore Raven. So looking at the depth at the wide receiver position behind Travis Kelce as well as Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman will only need to compete with Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson. Far and away the best opportunity Mecole Hardman has ever had to get starting snaps. While I'll be the first to admit that both Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle are a bit more underrated than most people think, the financial commitment that the Chiefs have to both of those players pales in comparison to what they were investing into Sammy Watkins. Their financial commitment virtually ensured that Sammy Watkins, while healthy and available to suit up, was going to remain on the field and play starting snaps, and with Mecole Hardman being a key role player on special teams and them not planning to have a replacement nor need one, so when taking into consideration all of those factors, it is easier to see how Mecole Hardman ended up playing on just 44.5% of snaps, despite being one of the team's most young and talented players on the roster. This season though, it's time for change, and this is the year Mecole Hardman could potentially have the breakout season we've all been long awaiting. rating. One thing I do want to make clear though is that Mecole Hardman being second on this team when it comes to depth chart behind Tyreek Hill, it's not all smoke. Nate Taylor, beat reporter for the Kansas City Chiefs, posted a Q&A article with The Athletic, and he noted in that article that Mecole Hardman is by far and away the leading receiver to be second in targets behind Tyreek Hill this season. So not only do we know that the talent's there and the opportunity is there, but it looks like the offense is also trending in that direction, and Mecole Hardman's looking pretty darn good in the process. Sidebar that The Athletic article and quote was posted on our website in the Trending Players tab. This is actually a new section of our website that we've released to everyone, so no, you don't have to be a member to enjoy this content. The purpose and goal, of course, is to keep us updated throughout this offseason, finding and identifying players that are either trending upward or downward in their offenses. So basically a one-stop shop where you can find players whose stocks may be rising or falling. And like I mentioned, the best part is it's open to everyone, so you don't need to be a member to enjoy this content that we've curated for you. Before we move over to the next player though, I just quickly want to touch on Mecole Hardman's ADP. Currently, he's a complete steal in the draft coming off the board as the wide receiver 52. We actually have him ranked 10 spots higher than that at the wide receiver 42. So clearly, we think he is one of the better late round targets, one that provides a ton of upside, massive breakout potential with this one, and on top of that, you're getting a great value in the process. He's a low risk investment with a ton of upside in one of the league's best offenses, led by arguably the most talented quarterback in the league. Moving on, up next, we have DeVonta Smith of the Philadelphia Eagles. I feel, unfortunately, that this is a player I haven't had the opportunity to bring up as much as I would have liked. Don't mistake his lack of video popularity, though, with a lack of breakout potential. DeVonta Smith can 100% be this year's Justin Jefferson, and with his price tag being the wide receiver 32, you won't be forced to pay all that much to find out if DeVonta Smith has the potential to reach his ceiling in 2020. The first question we should be asking ourselves, though, is what type of ceiling could we expect from DeVonta Smith if everything falls in his direction, and what would it take for that to happen? And for starters, we have to look at his draft profile, identify his strengths, find out where he fits in the offense, and just to give you guys the highlights, DeVonta Smith is a receiver who can literally do it all. Smith, of course, a Heisman Trophy winner, finished his season with 117 receptions, over 1,800 receiving yards, 23 receiving touchdowns to go along with another touchdown on the ground. This guy, he's an elite playmaker. We're talking about a receiver out of Alabama who had first half stat lines of 7 receptions for 219 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. These types of performances were not few and far between. These were performances he could string together consistently week after week. So when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, what they're getting is a player who can not only a player who can do it all, but he's also a player who can play consistently throughout the process. It feels like over the past several seasons that the Philadelphia Eagles wide receiving core has been plagued with inconsistency issues, dating back to Nelson Aguilar, the king of drops, and we have Alshon Jeffrey. Even Zach Ertz, the anchor for this team, ended up being another player that we can toss in the basket of inconsistency. Now the only players that we feel we can rely on are new faces to the organization and team like Dallas Goedert, Jalen Hurts, and while that is an unfortunate situation for the Philadelphia Eagles, it does open up a massive opportunity share for other players to step up in this offense. For that reason, fully expect DeVonta Smith to step in and be the wide receiver 1 in this offense as early as day 1. And no, I don't think that's a stretch, and I don't think many people are questioning that. What we should be questioning though is what type of upside could we expect if all things go his way. For starters, the Philadelphia Eagles offense is definitely a positive fantasy friendly situation. Whenever we're looking for wide receiver production, you always want to look in a few key areas. One of the first, how much volume is there to go around? Look at total pass attempts, and when looking at the Philadelphia Eagles, this is an area that they consistently rank top 12 in. Their lowest finish was actually 12th over the past 3 seasons. A high amount of passing volume can mitigate risk at the wide receiver position because you know if there is enough pass attempts to go around, that even if your receiver is having a down game when it comes to offensive involvement, he still may get a fair shake and opportunity to score enough fantasy points not to bust for your lineup. On the flip side, high passing volume can also mean in those big games where the targets are hitting and your wide receiver is heavily involved in the offense, that's when we start to see those games where receivers go 10 receptions for 100, 200 yards, an average stat line for DeVonta Smith in a college game. But high passing volume, it is something we've grown to expect from the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, this is a new coaching staff, but what we do know about the new coach, he has a strong history of developing wide receivers. He's an offensive coordinator, so you better believe offensively the wide receivers will be getting a fair shake. And I know the other concern would be with Jalen Hurts being a more mobile quarterback. Can we expect the same amount of passing volume? And while no, inherently any quarterback that does rely more on their legs is going to veer a bit further away from total passing volume. But if anybody out there thinks that Jalen Hurts being a mobile quarterback means he's not going to throw 30 plus pass attempts frequently, that's a flat out lie. He had 44 pass attempts in a game last season, another game with 39 pass attempts, and another one with over 30. Realistically, every game that he was able to appear in over 70% of snaps, Jalen Hurts was throwing for over 30 pass attempts per game. Whether that be by necessity or poor defense, the fact of the matter remains, there is going to be plenty of passing volume for the receivers to be productive on this team. On top of that, the defense, it's very suspect. What that means is the Philadelphia Eagles are likely to run into situations where when they face stronger teams offensively, they're going to have a lot of garbage time production. In those games, Eagles fans likely disappointed, your fantasy team though completely happy. I don't think it's out of the question to say that DeVonta Smith has the potential to have a Justin Jefferson-esque type rookie season. Jefferson put up over 1,400 receiving yards on an offense that ranked 26th in total passing volume. Justin Jefferson was competing with a competent receiver like Adam Thielen. DeVonta Smith really doesn't have that much competition for targets, not even a receiver at the level of Adam Thielen. On top of that, the Philadelphia Eagles defense, not that great. Say what you want about the Minnesota Vikings defense, but it's by far and away better than the Philadelphia Eagles defense. So if we're going down a checklist, trying to identify what a more fantasy-friendly situation would be when comparing Justin Jefferson's rookie season to DeVonta Smith, hands down, is going into a much more fantasy-friendly situation. And with DeVonta Smith coming off the board as the wide receiver 32, and in order for DeVonta Smith to hit that, he doesn't even need to play good. All he has to do is just simply not suck. Alright guys, we're moving into the next player, and I'm not going to harp on this player all that much because I know that you've heard about him several times throughout this offseason from both Nick as well as myself. The player I'm talking about, of course, is Laviska Shenault of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Laviska Shenault has been a player we've consistently brought up throughout this offseason, mostly because he falls in a stage of the draft where it's a low-risk investment for the players going in his range. And when comparing Laviska to those same players, the upside if each player reaches their ceiling can't be compared to what it would be for Laviska Shenault. What always baffles me, though, about bringing up Laviska Shenault is that not everybody is in consensus with exactly how much of a stud this player is. I think I get it, though. I'm going to begin to call this the Justin Jefferson effect. Whenever a player like Justin Jefferson puts up 1,400 receiving yards, any rookie that's going to be compared to him, like Laviska Shenault, who only puts up 600, literally less than half of what Justin Jefferson put up. Some of the people just looking at the basic stat sheets, maybe not looking into the advanced metrics or watching him on film, they see his stats, overlook the advanced analytics, see the 600 yards, and yes, I can see why some people are a bit more down on Laviska Shenault. At the same time, I feel we should be thankful because he's coming into the draft with a very affordable ADP, an ADP that would likely rise if more people were aware that Laviska Shenault finished as the top overall rookie in the area of true catch rate. Also, when compared to all players across the NFL that received over 75 plus receptions, this was an area Laviska Shenault actually ranked 7th in the entire league. It doesn't just end there though. We have target premium when compared to the entire league once again. Laviska Shenault ranked 8th in this area, meaning when the ball was thrown in his direction, good things happened. In fact, it'd probably surprise you considering the dumpster fire that the Jacksonville Jaguars had at the quarterback position last season, that Laviska Shenault was the 18th best player to target when it came to QB efficiency. So even though the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback sucked as a whole, when they were actually targeting Laviska Shenault, they were playing pretty darn good. One thing that we know is wide receivers typically take a step forward from their rookie season to sophomore season. We're actually seeing the third-year breakout narrative actually be pushed a bit earlier. With each season, the wide receiver breakout age getting younger and younger and younger. Laviska Shenault, he's no exception. I definitely expect him to take a full step forward this season. Mainly, super stoked to see the upgrade at the quarterback position with Trevor Lawrence being drafted first overall. Trevor Lawrence has been a quarterback I've been following since all the way back when he was 15 years old. This was, of course, when he was an Elite 11 athlete. He was the number one prospect there, had a ton of success at Clemson. Now heading into 2021, leading the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team with a subpar defense that ranked 26th in passing opportunities for 2020. A very similar situation to what I had mentioned with Philadelphia Eagles. High passing volume, terrible defense. That all adds up to more garbage time opportunities. And with none of the wide receivers in this offense having any sort of predetermined chemistry built up with Trevor Lawrence, that means it's going to be a fair shake for each of them. Marvin Jones, though, he is getting up there in age. DJ Chark, he hasn't proven to be able to stay healthy, but when it comes to Shenault, there's absolutely nothing bad we can say about him. We know when he's going to be targeted, they're going to have success, and when a quarterback is developing chemistry with his receiving weapons, if he's having success with one specific receiver, where do you think he's going to feel most comfortable targeting when plays break down and he is uncomfortable? That's right, it's going to be the quarterback that provides him with the highest quarterback rating when targeted. Laviska Shenault already proving to have major success in that area with some of the best hands we've seen in the entire league last year, and that was as a rookie. Heading into 2021, there is room for improvement, plenty of passing volume for him to be successful, and with his ADP coming in as the wide receiver 39, and if you ask me, that's quite the low risk investment for a player that has a decent chance at breaking out for the 2021 season. If you're looking for the highest chance of a breakout on this list, then look no further than the fourth player. I wasn't going to include him because he is going at a pretty early stage of the draft, and no, I'm not talking about CeeDee Lamb. The fourth breakout wide receiver for 2021 is Jamarr Chase of the Cincinnati Bengals. If you want to land Jamarr Chase on your roster, you're going to have to pay up for him. Currently, he's coming off the board as the wide receiver 22, so a back-end wide receiver 2 come draft day. For most people, that's a pretty hefty price tag, considering Jamarr Chase is joining a team that's completely loaded at the wide receiver position. The Cincinnati wide receiver room is going to consist of a combination of not just Jamarr Chase, but also the always underrated Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, though, likely to play third fiddle behind T. Higgins, who had a mini breakout season himself a year ago. But for those of you out there that are always trying to seek value in drafts, I can understand why you may want to be avoiding Jamarr Chase. For starters, you're paying for production you haven't yet seen. Jamarr Chase never taken a snap in the NFL, yet is being drafted as a wide receiver 2. This isn't a running back we're talking about. Running backs we typically can take in the first round if they fall into the right situation with the right talent. Wide receivers, this is literally unheard of. For that reason, I definitely see a lot of people in home leagues potentially avoiding him. So there's a chance that Jamarr Chase falls even below the wide receiver 22, which means if you can get Jamarr Chase as not only a back-end wide receiver 2, but even potentially a high-end wide receiver 3, then you're printing money at that point. While there may be some early bumps in the road as Jamarr Chase gets accustomed to the speed of the NFL, something that he shouldn't have too much trouble with, I'll get more into that in a moment, but the biggest obstacle, of course, is just learning a brand new offense. That's not to say he won't have one massive advantage, though. That advantage, the quarterback that threw to him when he was having all of his success throughout his entire college career, that quarterback is actually Joe Burrow, the current quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes, that's right, this team went out of their way to reunite the quarterback-wide receiver combo, so unlike other rookies in previous seasons, Jamarr Chase is actually going to head into a situation where he is the most experienced wide receiver with the quarterback, yet up to this point has not even played a snap in the NFL. We're making history here, boys, so this is an unprecedented situation, so we can't really handle this like we would a typical rookie wide receiver, meaning the ADP of the wide receiver 22. While that does feel egregious, it's not unwarranted. Jamarr Chase, he is one of the most phenomenal prospects we've seen in a very long time. I went back and watched every single target he had throughout his entire college career. I honestly couldn't find one major area where I could see a red flag in. In fact, I saw numerous examples where he showed off a wide range of skills, including easily high pointing the ball, dominating on slant routes, crisp routes, incredible change of pace. A true wide receiver that does have that actual wow factor. I'm talking that Odell Beckham type wow factor. And it's not like he was playing against weak defenses only. He competed against some of the best defenses in the SEC. We're talking Georgia, Alabama. Jamarr Chase, though, he's no slouch. He could get it done. Jamarr Chase, though, he's no slouch. He can get it done against the best college defenses, meaning his transition into the NFL, while it may be bumpy for the first few weeks, I feel very confident that he will be having success by the mid portion of the season and beyond. Alright guys, we're moving into the final player, but before I do, I just want to give a quick shout out to a player that I really desperately wanted to add, but I had brought him up in so many other videos. He was featured in a short recently, but this breakout was very obvious. It was CeeDee Lamb of the Dallas Cowboys. This video is already pushing 20 minutes, so I'm not going to break down CeeDee Lamb, just give him a quick shout out because I think we all can be in an agreement that he's going to have a phenomenal 2021 season, or else he wouldn't be being drafted as a top 15 wide receiver. But moving from a player on this list that has the highest ADP to the player on this list that has the absolute lowest ADP, and it's a familiar name. It's Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. I'll be the first to admit that I was not necessarily a massive fan of Michael Pittman to start his career. At first, I thought he was a bit too slow. He had a big body, but I didn't think he had the ability to use it as well as a player like Kenny Golladay, a player that heading into his rookie season, he drew many physical comparisons to. We're talking 6'4", nearly 225 pounds, and when it comes to his reach, his catch radius, this is an area he ranked in the 88th percentile. A big-bodied receiver like that likely should be a superior weapon in the red zone, but unfortunately, he finished his 2020 season with just one receiving touchdown. The funny part about that is that touchdown came from about 30 plus yards out. He actually used his speed in order to secure that touchdown as opposed to his size, something that heading into last season I thought was going to be something he more relied upon. But that's why I had mentioned that I wasn't the highest on Michael Pittman originally, but when he started to get his opportunities, I started to pay more attention to Michael Pittman. I actually picked him up off the waiver wire, and with giving him that added look, that added attention, I started to realize what type of potential Michael Pittman could have if there was competent play at the quarterback position. Nothing against Phillip Rivers, especially throughout his entire career, but Phillip Rivers, of course, last season was a shell of the former Phillip Rivers. The only thing that was actually consistent with his play was the percentage of targets that went to each position. Phillip Rivers, historically, we know that he loves targeting tight ends in the red zone. Antonio Gates, of course, having so many successful seasons. What else do we know about Phillip Rivers is that he loves targeting running backs out of the backfield. Nyheim Hines popped off to begin the season. In fact, no quarterback threw to the wide receiver position at a lower rate than Phillip Rivers did in 2020. Believe it or not, under 60% of the total passes in this offense went to the wide receiver position, and while not all the wide receivers were healthy throughout the entire season, which could have inflated some of the numbers for Phillip Rivers, it's undeniable that we have seen throughout his career that he does have a tendency to target other positions outside of the wide receiver. Now, Carson Wentz, he does love to target tight ends himself. He's not afraid to target running backs either, but when it comes to Phillip Rivers and the massive extremes we saw last season, I think we safely can expect that number to regress more to a league average, which means overall the passing volume for all wide receivers in this offense should increase, which means the ceiling and floor for Michael Pittman will inherently increase as well. It'll take a bit more than that though for Michael Pittman to break out. What exactly would it take? Well, for starters, Carson Wentz is going to have to return a bit more to form, not to full MVP 2018 form, but at least something better than what we had last season out of Philadelphia. Carson Wentz in that offense was unable to bring any wide receiver to fantasy relevance, and when he's joining the Indianapolis Colts, a team that has a much stronger defense, that has a strong offensive line that can rely on the run game with Jonathan Taylor, those added benefits that he didn't have out of Philadelphia can be used to mask some of his shortcomings. However, if Carson Wentz can return a bit closer to form, let's say 70% to 80% of what we had became used to prior to that Super Bowl run, then Michael Pittman is going to be one of the strongest breakout candidates, especially when compared to the players going around him in drafts. Michael Pittman is by far and away the most likely player to lead this team in targets. We caught a glimpse last season of how Michael Pittman could perform if given a full workload, and with the Indianapolis Colts not bringing in any major weapons in free agency, bringing back the aging T.Y. Hilton, who's going to be more of a role player this season, his competition is virtually Zach Pascal, Paris Campbell, and that's about it. And as much as people want to rag on Michael Pittman for being unproven, what does that say for the other wide receivers in this offense who we gladly take Pittman over? Meaning the likeliness of any of these other wide receivers overtaking Michael Pittman on the depth chart while healthy, it's an unlikely situation. Based on their history, they're more likely to get injured than have that as a result. So circling back to what it would take for a Michael Pittman breakout, it realistically wouldn't take much. All it's going to take for Carson Wentz is to perform as a consistent and serviceable quarterback. The best part about Michael Pittman definitely has to be his ADP. Currently, he's coming off the board as the wide receiver 48. We have him ranked inside the top 40. So not only is this yet again another breakout candidate you can target late in drafts, but this is also a player that we feel is coming in at a massive value. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. We really hope you enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.